Hey, and welcome to the Sunshine Summit for 2018. My name is Heather and I am the host of Sunshine and PowerCuts, a podcast which features two types of episodes that alternate. Sunshine ones offer inspiration drawn from nature, and in the PowerCut ones, I share insights into my life living off the power grid. This week, the Sunshine Summit is a week of live streams celebrating connections because they're really important. I want to get together with everyone and have a bit of a party and recognize and celebrate the connections that are important to us. We've been going live for the last 4 days. Today is day 5, and I am so grateful to be joined today by Logan Naugle of the Paper Robots Podcast. So, yeah. Hey, Logan, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm seriously so glad to have you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Just for everyone.
I hope I don't ruin your live stream.
You won't. We'll have fun. It's all good. We connected because it's kind of the running theme of the Sunshine Summits. It happens to be Andrew from Podcastage. And so I met you through Geeks Rising, which is kind of where the Badger Says podcast and the Paper Robots had been together. And I really enjoy listening to your show and the connections that you make. So if you would like to introduce yourself and the Paper Robots podcast, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Well, first off, shout out to Andrew. I think he's the glue of this circle of people. Just through either Podcastage or Geeks Rising has connected us all together. And I started a podcast about 3 years ago. 3 years ago. 2015. I wanted to launch a podcast because I was getting ready to do comics, and I wanted a way to chronicle and write down and share my thoughts with people. And instead of doing a blog or anything, I thought I would do a podcast because I love talking, and people said I love talking. So I figured that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. And
so then,
yep. You go.
Oh yeah. So I started it with my friend at the time, Micah. We're still friends. My friend Micah and I, because we were both gonna write stories and talk about soccer and life and pop culture and all these things. And then I decided I wanted to interview and talk to other creators and ask them tips and tricks about getting started in creating something. But it kind of kept snowballing into I just love talking because I feel like everyone has a story. Mm-hmm. And it's like watching the behind the scenes of a movie. It's like the story of the creator is almost as important as the content that they're making. And so for me, just getting to interview someone, it was more like a conversation that would go on for an hour or 2 hours. And I'm at 150 episodes and 3 years of talking to a lot of people.
Yeah. And part of that is
yeah.
Sorry for cutting over top of you, but I just wanted to say part of that is that you connect with a lot of creative content as well. So that's something that you're pretty passionate about, and you are a creator. So yeah, if you wanted to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've been in bands and I've tried art. Before I started writing comics, I went to school for short story writing, and I've always gravitated towards why does someone want to direct a movie instead of paint, or why do they do choreography instead of writing words? And it's all about someone else's story. And to me, those connections, because we're linked, and I think we share a lot of we put a lot of ourselves into our work, regardless of what the medium is. Even if you have a fake or if you have a podcast that isn't autobiographical, you're still putting yourself into it. And that's what gravitated me towards just connecting with people. And I lost my train of thought because I was just thinking about all the people I've had on the show. But yeah, I've had dancers, comedians, musicians, and a lot of comic artists and comic writers. Yeah.
One of your connections that you have that connected me with them is Jason Pittman who created the War for Caleb comic, which I am so excited about because it's about anxiety, and my podcast has kind of got a well-being flavor to it. So yeah, I think I saw you promoting it, and I got to catch the live stream with the two of you and hear you talk about kind of the process behind it, which was amazing. That insight into the journey and how he used his experience for that. And I'm so excited to get my copy when it arrives all the way down here in New Zealand.
Oh yeah. I don't know how long the mail will take on that,
That's
but
okay.
he just sent them out, and he's this amazing, like, he wrote, drew, inked, colored his whole book, and it's a story about anxiety, but it's told through superheroes because that's how the character deals with anxiety, is like having like the good and the bad, anxiety people on his shoulders. And he's a connection I made through moving to Portland, because throughout the course of starting a podcast, I was living in Arizona. I'm back there now, but I was living in Arizona, and there's so many publishers and opportunities in Portland. It's kind of like moving to LA to be an actor. So I moved to Portland with my girlfriend, now fiance, Cynthia, and we moved up there because she also does toy design and creative work. And we were like, let's take our creativity and like move out of the state we're born in. And so we just started going there, and we made so many connections from going to conventions and like just the local comic shops. We just met people, and then I have this platform to talk to people. So it chills my anxiety about approaching someone, because I get to hide behind the microphone of like, oh, well, I have a podcast and I'm professional, so like we should talk. But it's totally like a defense. Like that and sarcasm are like my shields to meet people with.
Yeah. I think it's amazing.
Jason was awesome.
Yeah, he is awesome. Sorry. I think it's amazing that you've been able to use the platform as a way to get the confidence to reach out to those people, to have them on, and that you're participating in these conventions and things. And you just briefly mentioned Cynthia, but she's a pretty incredible connection that you have. And you said she's your fiance. You've got a pretty big event coming up shortly.
We got engaged while we were living in Portland. We met through comic books. Like it's amazing, and it's like a geeky love story of we met through a mutual friend who actually helped connect Bandra and I. There's another connection of this who's now, oh man, everything's like a Venn diagram of who knows each other. My wonderful friend Malcolm, who's now doing movie content on the podcast. We had a college class together. He worked at a comic shop. Turns out that's the same comic shop that Cynthia worked at doing marketing. And I started going there, and then I started wanting to do podcasting and all these things. And we met at a comic convention, and then I started hanging out with all them through the comic community. And then her and I started dating, but Malcolm, who introduced Cynthia and I, basically also shared my podcast with Bandrew, and then we connected over Twitter. And so then Bandrew and I started having dialogue, and he would give me tips on like buying microphones way before he even started podcastage. And it was just like mutual friends in the same location, sharing and just being really supportive of each other. And yeah, Cynthia and I now, we got engaged, and now we're going to get married in October of this year.
That's exciting.
And it's super exciting. It's like we moved together, we've moved back together, and and now we're actually, I can announce this. This is an exclusive live announcement. We're collaborating on, she's starting to draw more. So we're collaborating on a zine together.
Cool.
Where it's like, it's going to be all the musicians and music we listen to with like lyrics and then drawings of the band or musician. And it's kind of like, because when I talk to creators, a lot of things we ask like, oh, what do you listen to while you make stuff? And like we share that type of stuff, because if I like the things you make, maybe I'll like the bands you listen to. And so we wanted to make a zine that kind of highlights that.
Cool. And one of the other, well, congratulations. That's so exciting. I'm glad. It's amazing that you connected in the first place, how you connected, the interrelationships, like you said, the Venn diagram of how everyone knows each other. But then that's translated into this awesome friendship and creative journey that you're both on, and that you're looking forward to your upcoming wedding. And I know that's a huge event to plan with everything else that you've had going on with moving and moving back and jobs. So amazing effort. Yeah. And with your creative content, you've got Beard and Frog, which you created.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Beard and Frog is like technically the second comic I ever self-published. Right now, all my work is self-published, which means like I write it and I collaborate with an artist since I don't do a lot of drawing. And then we kind of put the money together and then send it to a print place and get it printed. And it's what Jason did with his book. And Beard and Frog is kind of, when I was working in sales, it was my like escape. It was my free reign, like get out my stress through this kind of wacky book about a talking frog who used to be the mascot for this company, and then he no longer is popular. So instead of just like him quitting, the company owns him and they turn him into just a sales member, and that's where he meets Beard, who is a gentleman that gets a magical enchanted beard, and they go on adventures to find out their company's evil. So this like kind of wacky comic book about escapism and getting away from the daily life and like stopping evil, like the evil corporation, basically.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think it's a really creative journey, and I love how creative you are about everything. You've got so many ideas and you're putting them into practice and stuff, and like expressing yourself through that. Like that's kind of what my podcast does for me too. It's a stress relief thing. It helps me work through stuff that I'm working on or that's challenging for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like creating stuff is therapy for like content creators, instead of talking to someone like, well, I'll just get it out on the page or on the podcast or like making a video, and just that's where I'll do my therapy. And sometimes that's what I do when I talk to other people, is I'm asking them questions about my own insecurities about my work, but I get to just ask them, like, share your secrets, when I'm secretly like taking it all in and being like, yes, okay, thank you. I'm glad you feel that way too, because that's what I'm going through. Yeah,
that shared experience through communicating with people is just incredible. We can get so much out of it, even if we put it to them and ask them the questions. But yeah, that's what I love about connections, and that's why I wanted to celebrate them this week, because they do mean a lot and they do help us, and they are a very important part of life, I think. We can, even as content creators, whether you're writing a comic or drawing or whatever, you can feel pretty isolated. And so, yeah, it's reconnecting yourself with people out there and things that you enjoy. What lights you up is the way I like to put it in my podcast.
Yeah, I've totally, not to just like, because I'm on your show or anything, but I've totally adopted the like what lights up your life, because I think that's such a good way of like approaching it or thinking about it, and like connecting with Bandrew and then hearing you ask questions on his podcast and then him like mention your podcast and stuff just really got me to listen to your show. And there's such a bond of connections, and like writing and working on comics is this collaborative thing that you do alone. It's like, because I'm writing alone, but I'm collaborating with an artist, and then they're doing the art alone, but we're building a thing together.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I was in bands, it's like you're each playing your own instrument, but you're building a song together. But then when you're like live on stage, it's kind of like all or nothing. Everything comes together, and you're connecting, and then it's like one step further of like you're there with the audience. And that's what like going to conventions for me is. It's literally me with the thing I made, sitting at a table sharing it with like anyone who wants to walk up.
Yeah. So you've got a convention that you're going to next month.
Yeah, in September, I'm going to Rose City Comicon, which is back in Portland, because when I was there, I was able to get a table. And so it's a great way to, even though I just left, it's a great way to be like, hey, I'm back again for the weekend. And the book I'm working on with Cynthia, we're going to try to have that done in time.
Cool.
Her and I are also working because she does toy design.
Yeah.
And I drew a silly like Kylo Ren from Star Wars where he's shirtless. I drew like this ridiculous drawing, and she's like, I want to make that into a toy. Cool. So we're working on that, and we're trying to blend our worlds together because we want to travel to conventions together, and we can both have our own, but we can do these things together. And it's like having a best friend and partner and all these different things to work with. Yeah.
It's amazing. That is so cool. We've had some other stories shared this week of people who have like their partner or their husband or wife that they're working together, that some of them are podcasting together, or they're doing the other activities like archery and stuff. So it's cool that you share that common interest in creativity and making your creations come together as well, so you can actually not just be doing them side by side, but creating something as a team together and then going to the conventions. And you've made a lot of connections from those conventions as well. And then she's made a lot of connections with she's called 10 Times a Tiger is how you...
Yeah, 10 Times a Tiger is her like brand. Yeah.
Yeah. And I listened to one of your episodes where she's kind of had connections across the States. Has she had ones outside of the States that sold the toys outside of the US?
No, we haven't shipped, like she hasn't shipped outside of the US that I can remember. Yeah. But I know there's like been people in Europe because it's a lot of East Coast, which is really cool because, you know, in the States we're from the West Coast. So it's really cool to see that parked all the way over on the other side, we can reach people. And I'm sure, you know, with like your podcast, you get to look at those data and see like all these like blips of people that are interested in clicking on stuff. And I know she's had people click on her like toy site outside of the States, but there hasn't been, I think, because shipping a book is a little bit thinner than shipping a big toy that you'd have to make sure can travel safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But we've definitely met a lot of people through conventions. And I think to me, that's what's been really cool is I get to talk to fellow creators, but also just fans of the same thing as me at a convention. And they might be in the same town just visiting for that con, and then they're going to go back home. And I might be there because I live there, or I might have traveled there. So it's like we're all going to this like one point together for all of our own different reasons. And it's really fun to like just have that together and share that bond. Then we disappear 3 days later.
Yeah. It's kind of like this week has been incredible for me because I get to connect with the amazing guests and the people who come by the live chat. And then after this, it'll get a little quiet again because it's not something I do every week. But really grateful for the opportunity, and the internet is allowing me to do this internationally, which is incredible. I think it's awesome being there in person though at the conventions because that adds a whole other element to it. You can get excited together. You can physically show them what you've got and flick through it and talk about it, or show them the toys and things like that. So it adds another element being there in person. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that like when I was starting the podcast, I was only doing it with people in the same room as me because I wasn't like sure about the means of communication, how to record a Skype call yet, and so it'd just be with people that I could get to sit in the room with me. And I think it kind of spoiled me with like my confidence to talk to people, because then as soon as I had to schedule something on Skype, I was like, oh, it's gonna go exactly the same. And it's like, no, because you don't get to read the cues or pick up on the awkward silence and who's going to speak first and all those things. And it was another learning curve to the communication. But now I have the means, like you're saying, to talk to someone in New Zealand. And it's that's awesome.
It is really cool. Yeah. The connecting through this is kind of awkward because you're looking at the camera, not at the person. And it's just, there's a lot going on in a dynamic as well as trying to follow the conversation and keep it going and all of that. So I appreciate everyone who's been here. I appreciate you, Bit, for being here and being live, and because that's kind of scary and nerve-wracking and all of that stuff. But it's an element that makes it exciting because this week we can connect and we can see and hear from them and interact with the live chat. So there's all of that adding extra value to the conversation that we're having. So very exciting. I just put a question out in the chat if anyone has any questions for you. But yeah, one of the underlying themes of creativity in that you did an episode recently on characters, and so I wanted to talk to you about the content or the other content that you connect with that inspires you or anything, because you've got a connection with characters and superheroes and other things. So if you wanted to share some stories from there, that would be really cool.
Yeah. I did the content episode. So the podcast is, I'll back up a minute. The podcast has changed so much over 150 episodes, where at first it was me and my friend talking about pop culture and a little bit about our writing, and we were drinking on the podcast, which made it really fun to edit, me mumbling my words and stuff. And it kept changing, and then it would be, let's talk to other creators, and then I was just doing that by myself, and then I decided what are other things to talk about, and instead of just having a bunch of random like shotgun of questions, I wanted to kind of have, what have you talked about a specific topic or subject for an hour with creators. And one of them was character, and that was one I was really waiting on, because for me, that's where story writing comes from for me. Like, I can't Game of Thrones it, where they have this huge world and then you zoom down and you're like each character and they're all cogs moving in this big world, or Lord of the Rings, or any of those like huge epics. I like to start with like one person and okay, who they are. And it's like, if there's fantasy elements or fiction like Beard and Frog, where it really is about two best friends working in sales, but with sci-fi fiction twist and, exaggeration and everything. And so for me, it's always about the characters moving in that world than it is the whole world. So character was a huge thing for me. And whether it's superheroes, which that's what got me into comics when I was a kid, it was Spider-Man and Batman, like the two cliche answers. But I have an older brother, and my mom made us a Batman and Robin suit. I don't think I've shared the story. Maybe I have.
Okay.
A Batman and Robin like suit that she homemade, and I lived in my Robin costume. And I told everyone we met that I was Robin. I wasn't Logan. I was Robin, because I was in the costume. And then fast forward to me being in my 20s, and I have a Robin tattoo, with like an R tattoo. And my brother has the bat symbol, and cool. So like it's always been about like characters, and superheroes are like this exaggerated version of that. And I like, something that's going to tell a journey. And I think fiction has a really huge, powerful way of doing that. And yeah, I think, man, I grew up with comics, and then it turned into movies and documentaries and everything behind the scenes and how those things are made. And because I wanted to know more about the thing I loved. Yeah. And I think that's what got me into like asking questions and wanting to be a creator and telling stories.
That's awesome. That is so cool. We got a question from Derek from Sometimes Geek, and he said that he tends to get the most anxiety when talking to people about his content in public. How have you turned your creative outlet into a means to get past that anxiety of sharing it?
Ooh, okay. First of all, I was definitely the same way. I would say I'm definitely a much more extroverted person to begin with. Especially more than other writers I know or artists I know. And so I love sharing. And luckily with my podcast where I have guests, it's a means of promoting myself by saying, oh, I do this show where I talk about other people.
Yeah.
And it kind of like takes it off of me. But I've also just, whenever I'm at a convention and I'm not like behind the table, I like to be able to say, hey, I make this thing, and I see that you make a thing too. And usually it brings you together, instead of it just being like, oh, I'm a spectator. And it's been hard though to get over that hurdle of like the humble brag about yourself. But I don't know how else creators have a weird problem to handle, where you need to share. Yeah. But you don't want to have an ego. And but you need to have enough of an ego to share what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I was on, thank you for inviting me to be on your show, by the way. I really enjoyed my conversation with you. And part of that was you asked me about that kind of tall poppy syndrome, where I have that. I mean, I didn't know how to answer you then, but I've thought about it since then. And I have that. I don't feel super confident sharing it publicly some places, but I've found that I've found some groups of people that I do feel comfortable with, where I know that I would be supported in that, and I've been able to share it there. And there is a little bit of that kind of just pushing through and trying to find a way, the way you want to share that message of what you're promoting without coming across like, I don't know, a know-it-all or a spammy, offensive person. So it's a challenge.
Hey, like, look at me.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think what helped with me was like knowing about like tall poppy syndrome, because I was listening to a podcast with a British actor being interviewed. I can't remember who it was, but there was this thing that stuck out of over there when they ask you what you're doing, so in the States, in America, like we define ourselves so much by our day job. And I work in food service. I make food and I serve food to people as my day job. And, most people like, oh, well, why aren't you a manager of a thing or a blah, 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 because you're getting older. And I was like, because it pays the bills so I can do my creative stuff. But in Europe, they were talking about how like, they define themselves like they might work as a lawyer or whatever, but if they go home and paint and someone asks them, they say, I'm an artist. And I think that really like got me to think like, yeah, why do we define ourselves by our day job? And it's a really weird habit to have and to try to break because of all the social norms that are already there.
Yeah.
But just listening it to other people and other interviews and life experiences and like talking to someone from a different country, like you start to realize like, okay, the world is like I'm so much smaller than I like. It's a relief, and it makes it easier to go like, just talk about the things you love. And that's what I think, going back to the question, is like, that's what makes it easy, is this is the thing I love, and like making comics. So I'm talking about it and I'm mentioning that I make them, but I always try to keep it as like an open conversation.
Yeah.
And so I'm mentioning a thing as a means to get them to talk about something else too. So it's not just me like, yo, I'm the guy who makes comics. What's like,
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I think also knowing that if like really connecting with that passion is kind of what you're saying as well. And that's something that you really enjoy. And my thing is like, I know deep down that I have really good intentions. Like I'm trying to do something really positive and share something really good with the world. And so that's kind of helped me push me along as well, knowing that the intentions underlying what I'm doing are essentially really good. And Tim asked a question that he frequently deals with creative blocks. Have you ever dealt with being blocked? And if so, do you have any tips on getting past it?
Yes. Actually, it's right before we were recording, I was talking about how in both ways, for writing and for podcasting, I love getting to have a show where I'm collaborating with people, because then I'm bouncing off, and like I really feed off of. I feel like I would be in a really bad improv group if I didn't have a podcast or if I didn't do comics, because I like feeding off of the energy of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't done a solo podcast in a really long time. And I was banking on all these other episodes I had recorded, because I didn't want to record one by myself. And I kept pushing it off.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing was, I literally sat there and just was like, okay, I'm going to record this and I'm going to be honest, and whatever comes out, I can always hit stop and re-record, but I need to just like turn the microphone on and start talking. And when it comes, so that's how I handled the recording. It's just like hit the record button and be like, you got to start talking. When it comes to writing or drawing or any of those things, actually listening to your podcast, it was like a reminder to get out and go take a walk. And right now, that's really hard living in a desert, because it's triple digits. It's like way too hot. But one thing I would do, especially like living in Portland, or when in the morning here, or it's like here in Arizona, when I get off of work, sometimes I'll just take an extra 10 minutes to drive and put music on or no music and just drive, because it like decompresses and it clears my thoughts. It's like, it's the whole thing of everyone has their best thoughts in the shower. But what I do is I'll go walk away, literally like leave my desk from writing and walk and not have any music or anything, just so that I'm not distracted or having any other like inputs coming at me, and just that usually helps. The other thing I'll do is just start writing something completely different, like especially when I write serious stuff, because sometimes I do that and it gets heavy and I get like stuck and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is emotional and I need to go watch The Office or something. But I'll walk away, or I'll just go write something, like just a sentence that's silly, or I don't draw a lot, but I'll go draw because it's getting my brain to think about something else. And I think you start to think about it like in the back of your head, and then you can come back.
Yeah, I love that. In my office where I'm recording the Sunshine Summit this week and do all my podcasting and stuff, I have my computer on one side, and I find that when I'm getting bogged down with work or scripting episodes or something, I switch to the other side and I've done drawing or coloring it in or put some music on, or I will take myself right out of the room and go for a walk. And getting out in nature is a really good one because there's all sorts of other things to distract yourself. Susie, who was on yesterday, is a casual birder, and so she gets distracted by the drama that the birds have, which takes her kind of out of her own head and the stuff that's going on inside for her. So I love that you do that too, and you take yourself away and you've got these things that are somewhat not related, and then it brings you back and kind of reinvigorates the creative process. That's awesome.
Yeah, the only other thing I do, I guess, is whenever I'm editing and it's like a long episode, like I have like an episode with 3 other people on it. It's one of the movie reviews, and it's really long, and it's like balancing everyone's audio, and it gets like really like boring to like sit there and listen to the audio. That's like the only time I try to use my phone as a distraction, where like I'll just play a game on my phone, because I can still like listen to the audio and then hit pause and adjust the sound or whatever, or like clipping or anything. And that'll be like the only way I can like, okay, because you have to listen to the audio, but I do play games on my phone, and then sometimes I have to delete them off my phone, because I'll do that when I have writer's block, and I'm like, this isn't helping me. It's like, it's distracting me in the way that doesn't like clear your mind. It just like adds to it. So yeah,
and takes away from getting back to what you were wanting to do in the first place. Yeah. I totally know that feeling. Yeah.
I play Threes. Shout out to Threes if they want to sponsor. No.
What is Threes? I don't know what that is.
It's just numbers, and you like slide them into each other and you build bigger numbers. It's a fun waste of time.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the things that I've liked to do is have voice chats with people in Discord, because that is a fun way of hearing from someone else and getting their point of view, and being able to do that fairly quickly. Although time can disappear and those conversations can become really, really long. But they're a lot of fun, and yeah, there's quite a few different things that you can do. And if it is playing the game, or Andrew just said there is no good way to describe Threes. Okay.
It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. And hi, Susie. Thank you for stopping by before she heads to bed. She's in the UK, so it's pretty late at night for her. It's midnight, 12:30 in the morning at night. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, thanks for coming by.
Yeah. Just tying back, because Andrew just commented, he was in the Sunshine Summit back in March. He helped me close it out. He's going to be helping me close out this one as well. And he mentioned that you were one of his biggest connections, and you've helped him along the way. And before we started this, you kind of said that it's kind of the roles have reversed a little bit, and that he's been quite a big supporter for you. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Once again, like Bandrew, I think, has been like a glue for a lot of people. Both back when we first met, and now with the podcast community, like behind the scenes and Discord, and everyone like you and I meeting and everybody. But Bandrew is someone I definitely, with podcast problems, it's like having that partner that's like, oh, you know what I'm going through. I can hit you up on anything. And with moving and all those things we were talking about that are going on, that are these wonderful, exciting things that are time consuming and stressful in a good way. I just sometimes we get burnt out and go like, I'm not seeing the results I want or think I need or whatever. Like, and then because I think you get so used to like, okay, well, I'm receiving this type of reaction all the time, and I want to see it grow, but I'm not getting it, or feeling burnt out and a little complacent with the way things are going. And so Bandra's always been someone I could like reach out to, and he has, like, especially last year before I moved, I had messaged him, and he gave me very good feedback, and just was like, you got to keep going, what you're doing is good. And it was a good reminder, because sometimes you don't always hear it, or it doesn't sink in the same way.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's definitely helped me out.
Yeah. Well, you've done the same for him. So thank you for being a really important connection for him, because it is handy having that person in your corner cheering you on, going, hey, you are doing amazing. And if they have the experience to be able to help you that you didn't have, that's awesome to have that resource there. But also just the person going, stick at it, keep going. Because if we're just relying on ourselves to do it, it's a lot easier to get encouragement from that external support rather than, having that internal motivation and drive to keep you going on your own. So yeah, I just want to celebrate.
I think that's like connections, like being the through line in the show is like we all start something because we're excited internally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like finishing something is what gets hard, especially with writing, because or like creating, is you start and you're like, I have this idea and it's gonna be the next Star Wars or whatever, and then finishing it, you're like, I'm in the middle and I don't know what to do, and no one's patting me on the back, and I have to like keep myself motivated. But like with the podcast, it totally, I felt that way. But having people tell you and seeing, like, I've listened to some of the shows like from this summit, and there's like this common thing of, it's such a cliche, but it really is like, oh, we're all just people, and like Bandrew having a huge amount of subscribers and stuff. But it is really like, he's a person you can message or talk to on his Discord, and you're like, oh, he's just a human going through stuff too, and we all are. And I think that's a huge thing to think about if you want to be an actor or whatever. Like, these aren't like, they can be larger than life when you need them to be, but then remember that they're also people. Like, let people be inspiring to you, but also like remind yourself that we're all people and we can all do it.
Yeah. And we can all go through the struggles, and then we can lift someone else up and help them along.
Yeah. Because I think we've all been there, and the more interviews and things I like listen to, you hear about how like, oh, if I didn't listen to someone else tell me this advice to keep going, I wouldn't have stuck through it. Or it really is like, you kind of make your own luck by staying persistent, and luck is made because you've kept doing work, and you keep showing up, and you keep improving, and then all of a sudden it looks like you overnight success, because all of a sudden, I don't know, I equate it to like trying to like work out or run. It's like, you start running, and then all of a sudden you can go longer.
Yeah.
But
it's not necessarily going to happen that first time you go out, because your muscles aren't ready for that. And I love that. In my podcast, in a couple of the episodes, I went through some themes. I think it was a 7 Days of Sunshine challenge, but persistence is one of them. Nature is out there persisting. It just keeps on keeping on. And that is something that we have to do to get anywhere. But then at the same time, taking perspective, and that's kind of that connection thing, getting outside of yourself and looking back down on it. Sometimes that helps by talking to someone else and getting their point of view, which is a different perspective from yours. And persistence perspective, there was some other ones, the space for the creativity side of it, when you have like the creative blocks, changing your space or changing your routine up a little bit to bring in new inputs. to help the creative juices flow. So all of those things are really cool and something that I really connect with, which is why I'm grateful that I met you, because we kind of align on that so much. And I'm really glad that you've enjoyed listening to my podcast, because I also enjoyed listening to yours. One of the cool things I got out of one of your episodes was, what do you consume? And it's a funny thing because you asked me that when I was a guest on your show, and I was kind of lost in the moment. And it's something that I really should be quite mindful of, because I'm mindful of how much power I use on a daily basis. So I'm mindful of how much power I consume. But I hadn't really caught up with myself and worked out on the spot what other content I'm kind of consuming. So I'm going to switch it back to you and ask you, what have you been consuming lately?
All right, let me that question is something I like to throw at my guests, because I'm always looking for good recommendations, but I think the word consume kind of is a good way to put it, because it's like it's not just watching or reading, you're taking in that stuff. Especially if you are another like creative type of person, you really absorb that stuff and you do consume it as much as. But also it's like a reminder, like, yeah, I'm consuming these things, so I should be aware of what I'm doing. And so unfortunately with the move, my reading list has like stacked up. I have all these books right here and movies that I've read, but my book list has kind of gone on hiatus, and I've kind of just recently got back to like watching things and getting into that. And the movie reviews we do on the show have got me to watch movies again. So like lately I've been consuming like Mission Impossible movies with Tom Cruise for the reviews. And then I watched like Isle of Dogs, which Wes Anderson is such a great story person, because his characters are so particular and specific that you can almost break it down and really look at like what makes them tick, and motivations are like kind of clear because they're so quirky. And it's almost like a great study for storytelling is watching like a Wes Anderson movie. And then I've actually just been trying to go on walks more, like I said, like, so I've been trying to consume nature, and that really, I'm not even trying to eat tall poppies. I don't want to boost your ego, but like, since I've listened to your show, it's been a reminder to like consume more nature, and just like to walk, and being back in the desert is like to drive and just like soak it in, because I was consuming too many iPhone games and not just like, and like just putting too much, like being on social media, and it's like decompressing from that. And I will pull up a list of things I've actually recently done.
Cool. While you're
in
doing
one
that,
second.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll just say that this week of the Sunshine Summit has been pretty intense. We've got 12 guests over 7 days, and in the lead up to it, I tried to make sure that I was looking after myself so that I could be the healthiest person I can be and be present and just well enough to do this. And then that was a mindful thing that I started a long time ago. So making sure I was well nourished and all of that stuff and getting out there. During this week, I've made sure that once I hop off these calls, I do go outside. And so the very first day, which was quite epic, and the second day, getting 5 guests done in 2 days, I took time to really sit out and just be out in nature with nothing else. I turned everything off, partly to save power, but also to just listen to the world around me and slow right down and sort of let it go. And yeah, it's been really helpful. Before the summit started, I went to the hairdresser and kind of spoilt myself, which took me away. I couldn't physically do anything for a couple of hours, which was awesome. And yeah, been making sure I go for walks to keep the movement going, because we're sitting for a little while doing these calls. So I think that's awesome that you get that from listening to my show. It's great as well.
Yeah.
With a reminder. Yeah.
So okay.
Yep.
So first of all, I totally spaced. I was gonna message you because a lot of artist friends I know, that when they have a deadline or whatever, they'll make a big like stew or like pasta for like a whole week, so that way whenever there's a deadline, it's like, okay, that's one thing I don't have to worry about. I'm aware the same shirt and gym shorts, and I have this like meal that when I need food, it's already there. And that way I'm not thinking about what I'm going to make and stuff. And I always forget to do that for myself, let alone tell other people.
It's a good idea.
I'll go back to answer the things I've consumed because I recently watched 12 Assassins, which is like this kind of violent, loosely based on historical samurai movie.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my friend Micah, who was one of my co-hosts, him and I are actually trying to collaborate and work on a samurai story together. And we're going to write the whole thing and then look for an artist and then try to pitch that book. So I've been every once in a while when I have the free time, I throw in a samurai movie for historical reference.
Oh.
And then I saw Banjo's question, and there's this comic that I got on Kickstarter by Dave Baker, who's been on the show before, and it's called Action Hospital. And I have his volume 2, and it's like this big 300-page book. And I really want to read that. So like I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to this like kooky book called Cosmic Ghost Rider, where it's like Marvel Comics Ghost Rider meets like he goes into space and gets powers there, and it's just like an over the top ridiculous story, and the art is just out of this world. So I want to pick that up when it comes out.
Cool.
And then, I mean, there's a whole stack, and
Plus, while you're still trying to work on and create your own things ready for September, because that's not too far away. We're in August, so
I know it's coming up. Yeah. What I'm really working on right now is I have Beard and Frog 1 and 2 that are printed, and the third one will not make it to print in time for the Comicons this year, just because I'm going to use a different printer than I've ever used, and it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be going to print the zine myself. So the one I'm working on with Cynthia that I mentioned, and we're going to try to get the Kylo Ren toy together.
Cool.
And then I'm working on one other one that I'm trying to draw myself that we're just going to print. And it's going to be like really like lo-fi, my crude drawings of like henchmen having banter. About like why they're being henchmen and for like an evil person.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another one I'm working on with another writer, and I want to have all those out in like 3 weeks.
Cool. Yeah. Did Beard and Frog, is that online as well for people to find there?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for the promotion.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So it's in print, the first 2 issues, and then I'm updating it online, and I had gotten behind on that, but that'll be back on. And actually issue 3 might make it online before it comes out in physical webtoons.
Mm-hmm.
So linewebtoon.com, and then search Beard and Frog, and Tapas, which is like tapascomics.com, Beard and Frog, and you can check that out. And I have updates on that, and so you can read like I think the first issue and a half already online.
Cool. That's amazing, because that's one way that people can connect with your stuff. And so also, where can they find your podcast to listen to?
I host the Paper Robots podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and it is on all the podcatchers, so iTunes, but you can go to thatlogan.com, which is my website, because I have direct links for the comics and the podcast on there.
Cool.
Libsyn is the host, so libsyn.paperrobots.com.
Mm-hmm.
And at that Logan on Twitter. I'm most active on that and Instagram, especially for like posting comics and like my silly life on Instagram at that Logan.
Your IG stories, your Instagram stories are pretty cool.
Thanks. Yeah, that's where I try to be most active. Because they go away and I get to have a goofy time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what else? What else do we want people to connect with you?
I would say, so I just hit episode 150.
Yep. And
Vincent Kakua, who is the artist, and Matt Harding, they have a comic called Hyperdrive, which is all one word with an exclamation point. Mm-hmm. It's online, on Webtoons also. So Line Webtoon, search Hyperdrive. And he is working on a new Paper Robots logo redesign. So I'm going to shout him out as much as possible because we're kind of collaborating. But his comic's really cool. And it's like it's like those old choose your own adventure books.
That's awesome.
But it's a comic, and at the end of each week, or each episode of the comic, you get to comment down below with like A, B, or C option, and then they write and draw those results. And it's almost like these like let's play like live streams of like, but you're getting to choose, and it's like a comic that breaks the fourth wall. It's a lot of fun, and I really like those guys. So
that sounds awesome. That sounds really cool. Yeah, definitely. I think that's amazing. I'm going to have to check that out because I loved those choose your adventure things, and I love the engagement that brings with the audience. Like, you feel a part of it, obviously, because you're participating and shouting out which option that you want, and then you get to see that come to fruition. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you read Beard and Frog, I'll let people discover it, but there are like Twitters for Beard and Frog, and so because they use those things in the comics, I wanted them to be real in the real world, and there's a few tweets, so it adds like some character moments if you want some Easter eggs.
Cool. That sounds good too. I love that.
Yeah.
There's so many different elements there, and so it's awesome. Like I said at the very beginning, I am so glad that we connected, because we've got a lot in common, and I was not sure whether I wanted to throw this out there, but we have allergies.
Yeah.
A common connection.
Yeah.
So as much as we love nature, sometimes it's a little bit difficult because it causes us to have some issues. But yeah, I hope those kind of subside for you eventually once you get back into the swing of being back in the desert.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you understand my pain of allergies, and moving shifted my senses, and I got allergies now kind of everywhere I go in the desert. Luckily it's really hot, so I'm not going outside a lot, but I'm hoping by October for the wedding, and it'll be really nice outside. The allergies will be gone, and I'll have a nice breathing and really connecting with nature and having a great time.
That's awesome. So I wish you all the very best for you and Cynthia. I am so excited for you. I wish you a very happy big day, the wedding day, and everything that's going to be in the lead up to that, with the convention first and then your wedding. That blows my mind how much you've got on your plate. But I wish you the happiest of wedding days and for your life together going forward on this journey, because that's amazing, and that you're supporting each other all throughout everything that you're doing. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'll shout her out again just because she's the best. At 10 times the tiger, 10timesthethiger.com, everywhere 10 times the tiger, because we're collaborating. So you'll be able to find what we're working on her stuff as well. And thank you. Seriously, we'll have to do a podcast with all three of us and chatting and bonding, because I feel really lucky to be a part of this summit about like connections, because that's what I like to do with the podcast, and that's what I like to do. So I just feel really honored. Thank you for letting me be a part of it.
You're most welcome, and I would love to meet her. So yes, please, let's tee that up. That would be amazing. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Cool. Thank you, everybody, who came by the live chat today. It was so awesome to see you there. To Susie, to Bandrew, to Eldest, and Tim, and Jelan, and Derek, and we got someone else in there as well. Fastest Ain't Alive said hello, so thank you for saying hello. Yeah, really enjoyed this one today. We are going to thank you, Logan, for everything. I'm going to put links in the description of this video for all of your things, so I'll make sure I get those off you so I've got them right. But yeah, feel free to share this around so more people can find it and connect with you and connect with your things. And we're going to take a quick break after this, and then we'll be back with Lisa and Sam from I Shake My Head with Lisa and Sam. So thank you so much, Logan.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.